it is Oklahoma representatives on their way to Clemson right now, flight track their asses as they land in Greenville, and then get in the car to be able to head to wherever the Venables family is. Brent Venables was one of the first names out the gate. I will admit I was probably too dismissive of the chances that he was going to end up being the selection. I saw Alan Kinney, blatant homerism, on Twitter. If you want to follow him, he's been a long time Oklahoma writer and somebody whose opinion I always think is very interesting. And he said, no inside information here, but what his sense was is that the Brent Venables hire is probably paired with keeping some of the current skeleton staff in place. I mean, it wasn't like a coach got fired and you need to clean house. A coach left, took a couple assistants with him. But if you still have good assistants that are doing good work and want to stay committed to the program, then the Brent Venables hire, somebody who loves the university, has some history there, you might be able to pair him up with some of that same staff and be able to keep continuity going. The hire of Brent Venables, he suggested, and I think it's a pretty interesting observation to explore, is a move to keep continuity instead of trying to totally blow it up, start over, bring in a new head coach, allow him to hire all of his same assistants. If you think that you like the infrastructure around that program, and if you want to keep it in place, then maybe this Brent Venables hire is a piece that can get you there.
It's not a sexy hire.
No.
I feel like this is if you look at Oklahoma's history of hiring coaches, tends to be what they do. They get coordinators, big name coordinators, or Lincoln Riley wasn't a big name, but he became Oklahoma's offensive coordinator before he became the job. So I guess it still counts. But it's kind of like the Bob Stoops plan. Bob Stoops was the defensive coordinator at Florida. There was a team that was competing, from the SEC, competing for national titles, was a terrific defense. They bring him to Oklahoma. Brent Venables, defensive coordinator at Clemson, team that's competing and winning national titles, routinely has some of the best defenses in the country, and obviously he has the Oklahoma ties. So it feels like it's from that same playbook. And hey, if it works out as successfully as the Bob Stoops hire did, I think Oklahoma will be happy. So I think there's a lot of reasons it makes sense. But while Oklahoma fans are probably not going to want to hear this part, the more fascinating part of this move to me is what happens with Clemson. Because when you think about Dabo's time at Clemson and what he's built that program into, the narrative around it was always Dabo's the great CEO, and he's had excellent coordinators who he's allowed to do the job, and Clemson has paid those coordinators well to make sure that they stuck around. But the last few years, Jeff Scott left for the South Florida job. Now, if Brent Venables is leaving for the Oklahoma job, and who knows how much longer Tony Elliott's going to stick around, especially if that Virginia job's open, maybe that's something that's attractive to them. I'm more interested in seeing what happens with Clemson from this point forward, because I still think Oklahoma is probably going to be good, but it's going to be an interesting situation when they move to the SEC. But with the ACC, where there's so much more wiggle room right now, and Clemson's coming off down season compared to their recent standards, that's far more interesting to me.
I'm very interested in this from a couple angles. Number one, if the reports are true that he'll get Jeff Levy from Ole Miss, this very much kind of copies what Oklahoma did back in 2000. If you read Bob Stoops' book, he talks about, I wanted to hire a defensive coordinator who drove me nuts, or an offensive coordinator rather, who drove me nuts when I was the DC at Florida. And that guy was named Mike Leach. He was the OC at Kentucky, and he took him with him to Oklahoma. They won a title 2 years later. Obviously, Levy and what Ole Miss does is very frustrating to a lot of defensive coordinators, and I'm sure that Venables probably hates defending it. He also got a piece of playing it 3 years ago when Kendall Briles was the OC for the 1 year there in Tallahassee. Now, they still whipped him, but I'm sure he didn't like prepping because of how unique that system is. It's a little less unique in the Big 12, but there's not that. There's a lot of teams that run air raid, but not quite so much the Baylor stuff. Who else will get to fill out his staff? I don't know. The guy's a pretty proven coach. He is a good recruiter. I think he'll probably do well there. But again, coaching hires are a crapshoot no matter how good you think they are typically. And as Tom mentioned, if everybody's operating at peak efficiency, and there's no guarantee that they will be, what's Oklahoma's roster ceiling in the new SEC? 5th? If they really kill it on the recruiting trail, that is not the position they're normally in. And there will be some a time period where fans and boosters and everybody else needs to adjust expectations. I would think, just based on your access to talent in that league. On the Clemson side, I'm also very interested in this because there are a lot of reports out there that Dan Radakovich is likely to accept the Miami job. Did you guys know he's an alum? I didn't.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that.
A business school alum.
The
Okay.
business school. So I think he graduated from oh, it doesn't matter. Anyways, go ahead.
I mean, he'll have the chance to make the football hire, the baseball hire, and the likely the basketball hire there because Larinaga is still awesome, but pretty up there in age.
No longer a spring chicken. Yeah.
Tony Elliott is very in the mix for the Virginia job, as our Chris Hummer of 24/7 Sports reported this morning. When's the last time Dabo had to go outside and make a major hire? One of their hallmarks of that program has been stability. Now you're going to have a new AD who didn't hire Dabo, but will very, very much be, incentivized, and it could be an in-house hire as well to keep him as they will. But I'm interested in what Dabo does at the coordinator spots if he happens to lose both of his guys.
I think it is the most fascinating time for Clemson football, undoubtedly. The transfer portal. Are you going to use it or not? What do you think about it, Dabo? When are you going to come up to speed with the transfer portal? Forget your relationship with the transfer portal. What is Dabo Swinney's relationships with other coaches right now? Who is on Dabo's short list to call? It's been all about the Clemson family. It's all been about those Wednesday nights at the facility when it's all the coaches and all of their families and all their kids eating with the players, everyone in together. It's been about Jeff Scott, Tony Elliott, Brent Venables, kids playing on the team. Like you said, the Virginia and Duke are, jobs where Tony Elliott could land. If you all of a sudden are having to replace both of your coordinators and there's no athletic director in town, I can't tell if Dabo is about to become the most powerful person or whether this is all going to be like the beginning of some turning point, right? Or some turning point in the Dabo Swinney Clemson tenure, because part of me wants to say that Dabo has the potential to just become just the super alpha. This is just, he now that man of shorter stature, just grows almost in a comic book style manner or a video game style manner, because I think his relationship with Jim Clements, the university president, is pretty good. And that relationship, I believe, has allowed for a lot of the alignment that we talk about. Dan Radakovich has also been, pretty successful, but he's also somebody who's very, in the industry. In terms, he was at Georgia Tech before he was at Clemson. He was at LSU before he was at Georgia Tech. This is someone who is probably going to look for an opportunity where he can go and challenge himself professionally, not necessarily a lifer at any one school where they land. Not surprised that he's going to be on the move. But for the Tigers football program, how long can the old blueprint work? Because now you're going to have to take some pieces out of the machine and replace them with new ones. And I got to imagine there's going to be some friction, and either they're going to be better for it, having to modernize and get over this hump, or it's going to end up, making it very difficult to recapture the success of the last couple of years.
Chip, I'm incredibly impressed, by the way, with other Carolina news and your professionalism during this podcast. The Panthers have also fired Joe Brady.
Wow.
On a Sunday. That's
they're off.
Oh, that's right. We talked about this.
Yeah, I told you on the side. I was like, hey, Monday press conference isn't going well. Everyone seems really pissed off right now in the building. So we'll see what happens.
Was Joe Brady the one who traded for Sam Darnold and then signed a washed up Cam Newton?
I think that would be the owner, David Tepper.
Oh, did he injure Christian McCaffrey?
So to answer your Clemson question, Chip, they have recruited very well, but they have very much focused on fit. They don't really oversign very much. You guys already mentioned they don't really hit the transfer portal. I do expect that to change some. I don't think they're going to be like transfer portal mavens, but you can't tell me that you can't find a center with decent grades who wants to play as part of the Clemson family. I know they have higher academic standards than we might realize, but I do think their hit rate in recruiting, and I kind of stopped saying this because I said it for 5 or 6 years in a row and maybe look like an idiot each time. I just should have kept doubling down. I think their hit rate in recruiting was a little bit unsustainable. They recruited extremely well, but not on that Bama Georgia level as far as in our opinion of their players. but yet they were getting Bama Georgia level results consistently. And that's just extremely hard to sustain like that level of outlier performance over that period of time. A lot of it was probably quarterback driven and incredible staff chemistry. So very interested to see what they do now.
And I also think too, it's like you have to use the transfer portal these days. It's not like it was like even a decade ago, and it's like transfers was like a dirty word. It's like, oh, you don't want to fill your program with transfers. It's no way to win. It's like I feel like in this day and age with the portal, you're doing yourself a disservice if you aren't using it to your advantage.